Hey, how's it going? Today I am answering a question I got in DMs, and I wanted to bring it to your attention because I know if you're listening to this, you've probably thought of this too.
This is Running to the Castle, a podcast for injury-prone Run Disney runners on a journey to running magical miles. Join me, Dr. Allie, as I share the secrets I've gathered as a runner, doctor of physical therapy, and coach. You'll learn the exact ways I get my clients to the castle strong without feeling broken or held together with KT tape as they cross the finish line.
Okay, so the question that I got in the DMs says, it's been about 2 weeks since my last long run. I took 1 week off because of pain, and last week I ran 3 short runs. Can I hop back into my long run schedule this week, or am I going to hurt myself? I do run walk if that matters. I'm training for Dopey in January. It's my first marathon, and I feel so behind. Thanks. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. So I messaged with her and asked her a few follow-up questions, like I always do, which is, how long has the pain been going on? Like, is this a brand new thing? Did it just start for the first time? Or has it been going on for a while? And tell me more about it. Was it in the beginning of the run, in the middle of the run? Did it get worse as you kept going? Did it come on only after you ran? Does it hurt with other things? Does it hurt at rest? Or is it strictly when you're running? Does it wake you up at night? Things like that. The run walk aspect of it, for my answer, that does not matter, because with the run walk intervals that the majority of my clients do, they are doing like 1 minute running, 30-second walking before we start working together. We do adjust that and modify it as we're going through things. And actually, not all of my clients do run walk anymore. They've actually shifted, and now they just run straight through. However you want to do it is how I help you do it. If you want to stick with the typical run, walk, run focus, I can help somebody do that. If you want to switch and just pretty much run through, I could do that. If you want to do something like I do, where it's run, like run, walk, but it's much different than the typical intervals. I will run like 3/4 of a mile, a mile and a quarter, and then walk for a quarter mile, half mile, 3/4 of a mile, so on and so forth, depending on how my training schedule is planned out. So anyway, the run walk aspect does not matter. The training for Dopey in January and it being the first marathon does matter. So with this, it is so common, which is really why I want to talk about it. It is so common to hear a runner say, I've taken 2 weeks off since my last long run because of pain. Usually, a doctor, another healthcare provider, your mom, your best friend, I don't know, maybe your dog's telling you it too. You'll be told to take 2 weeks off. So I want to address where that 2-week time frame comes from and why I have a problem with it. So first off, the 2-week time frame comes because that's typically how long it takes for pain that's going to go away, pain and inflammation that's going to go away with minimal to no intervention. That's how long it will take for it to go away on its own, if it's going to go away on its own. So it's typically the doctor's recommendation, wait and rest for 2 weeks. If the pain's gone, go ahead and run again. That's because the majority of the time for a new pain or a relatively new pain within the past couple of weeks or month or two, we're not talking half a year or years long type of pain. So it will typically go away in 10 to 14 days. And so then if the pain isn't there, it is quote unquote safe to run. And I use quotes with that because yes, it is safe to run with some nuance. Don't go back out and pick up where the training plan left off, because A, it's been 2 weeks. So now you're 2 weeks further in that training plan. So if you stopped running based on the time of recording this, let's say you stopped running October 1st, and then 2 weeks later it's October 14th. Well, your longest training run may be up to 4 miles longer, because some of these training plans, they add 2 miles every long run, every week. So it could be anywhere between 1 and 4 miles further along. Well, you haven't run a long run that far yet in this training plan. And the last time you ran, it hurt. So now we are setting ourselves up for disaster. That is just not a good combination. So should you rest from running? Maybe. It's in the past. Had we talked 2 weeks prior, I may have said something different. It is very rare that I tell a runner, one of my runners, to rest completely. And that's because the 80% of running injuries are caused by overtraining. So you may be thinking, well, Dr. Allie, if you're overtraining, you need to stop. Well, no, you just need to not overtrain. You can still train, you need to not overdo it. And that's where working with a professional comes into play, so that you don't have to do the trial and error of what's too much, what's not enough, because obviously you still want to make progress, but you don't want to be overdoing it. You want the Goldilocks situation. You want it just right. So that's what I help my clients do. Well, that's one of the things I help my clients do. I have years and years and years of seeing hundreds of runners, thousands of PT clients, to know how much is too much pretty much right off the bat, listening to somebody's training plan. So, I did the trial and error thing ages ago with myself personally as a runner, but also as a newbie PT in the early years, I didn't always know what would work. So you tried it out, and well, sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But after 12 plus years of it, because if we're counting internship year, then we are counting pre-physical therapy licensed PT years, we're talking 13 plus years of being able to figure this out. So that's why working with a professional, whether it's me or somebody else, that's where the real guidance comes in, is they've done the trial and error. I don't recommend the majority of my clients to just complete rest. I do recommend active rest. And typically what I have them do is think back, what is the last known distance or time, depending on if they go by time or distance for their run, what is the last known amount you could run that was completely pain-free? Do that, and then tack on your favorite or not so favorite. Some people don't like cross training, but tack on your favorite cross training to make up the difference. So we don't want to lose endurance. We don't want to lose or not gain endurance and stamina. You still have dopey to train for. So let's say last long run was 8 miles. Last long run was 8 miles. Next one is supposed to be 10. So remember when I said it's going to be 1 to 4 miles more that next time? Well, last time it was 8. The actual 8 miler didn't hurt. And this is so common. The 8 miles doesn't hurt. And that was done on a Saturday. And then the short run on Tuesday is what hurt. What gives? And it's so common. It's because something built up. The inflammation was building up. The pain was building up from the long run, but it hadn't hit the threshold to actually feel the pain yet. Okay, so it's like if you were filling up a glass of water where you're getting just to the edge, but you didn't go over the edge. Well, that's the same thing. The pain and inflammation builds up. It's water being poured in the glass, but it hasn't gone over yet. But that next training run added a little too much water, added a little bit too much inflammation, so it spilled over, and now you can feel the pain because it has hit that threshold. And so that last run was a 30-minute run. Now, a couple of other things come to mind as I'm talking about this. That 30-minute run was probably a speed workout. So was it the long run from before, or was it now trying to go a lot faster while you had this pain and inflammation brewing? Or was it a combination? It was probably a combination. Anyway, so the last run they did was 30 minutes. Took 2 weeks off, and now we're up to a 10-mile run. Well, we don't know how much we can do. And the last known distance that was okay was 8 miles. Well, maybe that's going to be too much. So we might not know. We might not know the distance. So we can make an educated guess based on previous runs. So let's say we do 3 miles. Well, our pace is 15 minutes per mile. So now we have 7 miles to make up. So 15-minute mile, that means 4 miles an hour. So we're adding on another hour 45 of cross training. So you run 3 miles, then you do an hour 45 minutes of cross training at an intensity where you mimic what you would be doing on that long run. So then you're still getting the stamina and endurance, but less pressure on your knees, much nicer on your knees, so that while you are continuing to heal this knee pain and really completely get rid of the inflammation, because that's what happens in those 2 weeks. The inflammation goes down, but it just goes down enough to be sub-threshold, so you don't feel the pain, but it's rarely completely gone. And that's why it's a problem if you go right back out to running the same or more distance as pre-pain distances, because the inflammation's not gone. So you are likely, I'd say 95% of the time, the pain comes back in full force and then some. And so then you're in a lot of pain, and now you have to take 6 weeks off, because now the pain doesn't go away in 2 weeks, because now you've pushed it above threshold and it's going to take longer to go away. So instead, we do a long run, but it's short, right? I'm calling it just a long run because it's still going to be longer than your other ones. And then make up the rest of the time with your favorite cross training that you know doesn't aggravate your knee. So to wrap it up, if you've rested for 2 weeks, do not hop right back into your long run, because the pain will come back full force. This can also happen if you race and then take 2 weeks off before you get back into running again. That's a very common thing. Somebody will run half marathon or the 2-course challenge, take 2 weeks off because they're burnt out or they're exhausted. Their knees hurt just because it was race day and now they've walked around Disney World for 3 days in addition to the challenge. They take 2 weeks off and then they jump right into the training for the next race. So this upcoming race is Wine and Dine and then marathon weekend. So if you run Wine and Dine 2-course challenge, take 2 weeks off to recover from the race, and then you jump right into training for the marathon. Well, if you're following the Galloway plan, the next training run after that, it's going to be 24 or 27 miles. What? That is a lot to jump right back into if you are training for dopey and if you have taken 2 weeks off. I do not recommend it. Instead, I recommend recovering from that 2-course challenge. And I hate saying ease back into running because nobody knows what that means. I don't even know what that means on a generic term. It is very specific to each individual person. But you can't take 2 weeks off doing nothing, whether it's because of pain or you're recovering from the race and maybe it's pain associated with that, and then jump right back into training for the next thing or for your race. With that in mind, I am going to do a shameless plug right now. A couple of weeks ago, I asked my audience on Instagram if they needed help tapering for Wine and Dine or races in general, or if they wanted to learn more about training between races. So an overwhelming majority, 79% of the people who responded said train between races. So I am going to do just that. I am hosting a new free webinar, How to Train Between Races, Wine and Dine to Marathon. This is going to be for the RunDisney runners who have been struggling with knee pain or anticipate that they're going to have knee pain leading after Wine and Dine, leading into marathon weekend, so that they can train the right way and cross the finish line at marathon weekend. The main distances I'm going to be talking about are half marathon at Wine and Dine, and then marathon plus, so Goofy or Dopey, for marathon weekend. If you are doing a different race distance on those race weekends, please still join. Just let me know in the email that the first email you get, that what distances you're doing, so that I can make sure to have the information available for you. But this is a free webinar. It's going to happen on October 24th. Please go to the link in the description to join. Again, free webinar. When you show up live, you will get a free 10-week training plan to bridge the gap between Wine and Dine and Marathon Weekend, including immediately after Wine and Dine, so you know exactly when to start running again and how much to do, so that you don't overdo it, so you can cross the finish line without feeling broken.
As always, thanks so much for listening. That's all for now. Talk to you soon.